Good morning, everyone. We are reading in Book 1, the Book of Beginnings, Canto 1, the symbol dawn. And we stopped last week on page 5 at line 151. So we'll start again today with the line, "A sacred yearning lingered in its trace." The glorious dawn goddess has come, lighting up the darkness with her magical, enchanted light, turning into miracles common, meaningless shapes. And then she has faded away. Then the divine afflatus, spent, withdrew, unwanted, fading from the mortal's range. And we closed by reading Mother's comment on these lines last week. So we'll go on from there. Prasad, do you want to start?
A sacred yearning lingered in its trace.
Hold the book up and read to the book so everybody can hear you.
The worship of prescience and the power, too perfect to be held by death-bound hearts. The prescience of a marvellous world to come. Only a little the godlike can stay. Spiritual beauty illumining human sight, lines with its passion and mystery matters not, and squanders eternity on a beat of time of the earth. Adjoining mortal time to timelessness, spark of deity lost in matter's crypt, its lustre vanishes in the inconscient planes. That transitory glow of magic fire, so now dissolved in bright, accustomed air. The message ceased and wanted the messenger.
Waned the messenger.
The message ceased and waned the messenger.
Thank you. So the dawn has come with its giving its vision, its prophetic gleam, telling of a glory of wonderful births to come. And it's faded away, as it does every day. But Sri Aurobindo says that in nature, in the earth consciousness, a sacred yearning lingered in its trace. There's a sense of loss and of longing, but also of worship, the worship of this divine presence and power that has come for a moment, but is too perfect to be held by our death-bound hearts, our hearts which are in the grip of ignorance and death, because we have taken birth here in this material universe. But also mingled in that yearning and that worship, there's a prescience, a looking forward to a marvellous birth to come, a greater dawn, a greater light and presence and power. And then Sri Aurobindo says that only a little the God-light can stay. That is in our present state of existence here in the mortal world. These moments of divine presence and power may touch us, but they can't stay very long. The spiritual beauty illumines our human sight and lines with its passion and mystery this mask of matter that the divine has disguised himself with, covered himself with, that gets lit up with passion and mystery. And that spiritual beauty squanders the whole of eternity. It spends, it gives that sense of the whole of eternity just in a moment of time. Sri Aurobindo has written a shorter poem called In Hora Aeternis, eternity in the hours. And he's described several moments which he must have experienced, of the moment of feeling the whole wealth of eternity encapsulated in a moment of human time. That happens. But then it's like he gives this simile of when a soul takes birth. When a soul coming from the divine soul world, it comes near to the threshold where it will enter into the human birth. It's a sill, a threshold, which adjoins where mortal time and the timeless state meet. And that soul is a spark of deity, of divinity. But it gets lost into the crypt, this deep, dark, secret, but also sacred place of matter. And then its light, that beautiful light of that spark of deity, it vanishes in the inconscient planes. So similarly now, the dawn light, that transient glow of magic fire, so now dissolved, not in darkness, but in bright, accustomed air, the ordinary light, the common light of earthly day. The message waned. Her message was not spoken in words, it was written in light in the sky. So that fades away, and the messenger herself, her presence, fades away. Waning, it's the verb we use for the moon as it becomes smaller and smaller. It waxes, it grows, and then it wanes, it becomes smaller. Is it clear? Anybody would like to ask anything?
Yeah, you explained before that the pre-dawn light, the word Savitri means pre-dawn light. So when it refers to the messenger, who is that?
This is the dawn goddess. This is Usha. And Huta tells that she wept when that she was reading these lines with the mother, and mother described to her the image of the dawn goddess going away, and Huta wept and said, "Oh, she's gone away." And mother said, but she will return in the form of Savitri, the human Savitri. And then when this soul draws near, there may be a connection. I don't know, but we could see a connection. No? That there's this marvellous birth to come. It's the birth of Savitri. Yes.
No, Savitri is already born.
No. Oh, of course, yes. Savitri is already on earth. Yes.
The dawn is that Savitri is going to wake up. So these words mean the change that is going to happen at the end of the day.
I suppose so. Yes. Yes. This is the message of dawn. Every day it brings us a message of some new, the birth of some new light.
No, practical question.
Yes.
Human beings, when does the soul enter the baby? That's practical terms.
No, people have asked Mother this question, and she said everything is possible. So it may happen at the moment of conception, it may happen at the moment of birth, it may happen later also. So depends on cases, and it depends on the choice of the soul. But somewhere else, I think she said that very advanced souls, that they choose their parents in advance, and they participate from the subtle worlds in forming the parents and the mother, looking after her before the birth to give the best possible conditions. This can happen.
Might also happen that you wrongly,
They quickly leave. I don't know whether there's a wrong choice, but the Indian tradition talks about quite advanced souls who just come for a particular experience, and as soon as they've had that, they leave. So special children sometimes die very young. No?
Mother gives even examples of, let's say, soul births at 7, 8 years of age, later. It does not have to be always, but can come also later.
Later, yes,
Much
yes.
later.
Yeah, even much later, yes, exactly. Yes.
I have a question about the messenger. When you tell it's only the messenger wrote the message in the light of human. Only?
Well, that's what it says here. That on page 4, no? She says she wrote the lines of a significant myth telling of a greatness of spiritual dawns, a brilliant code penned with the sky for page. And that message was telling about the epiphany, the fulfillment, when our thoughts and hopes will be fulfilled. No?
Shraddhavan, you said everything, Mother said everything is possible. Is it possible for two souls to live in one body?
You would have to ask her. I can't say that. Say anything about that.
Because when you are pregnant with a baby, the soul of the baby is inside you, or
It depends. If the soul has incarnated at the moment of conception, and there are twins, there might be twin souls there, no? It's possible.
soul? There are three souls.
Yes, yes. In any case, the soul will have chosen the mother because of some affinity with her soul and the soul of the father. I think that's how these choices happen. But of course, some souls, I suppose, they're still into an early stage of development. They don't have that power of choice. Like with animals, I've seen it with animals. You know, they get reborn almost immediately in another body. And so then there might not be this choice. It's only the greater spirits, he says later on. They reverse the usual pattern of nature, and it's the inner being that chooses.
So killing a baby after 3-4 months, that's okay or not okay? Generally they believe after 3 months this will happen.
Well, these are beliefs, and as I say, Mother's answer was that everything can happen. Yes, yes. And perhaps only Mother herself could say in a particular case what has happened. There have been cases in the ashram. We know of one case where a baby was brought to her at 6 months old, and she immediately recognized somebody who had been with her before. But most of us, we can't see these things happening.
It seems that then to finish the discussion, this was not mentioned. Short seconds before you really leave your soul, you can determine your next inclination, at least expressing the wish to do that.
Yeah, I think Mother has said something about that also, making a formation.
Yes.
The soul, as it's leaving, it kind of knows why it's leaving, what it's done in this life, and it makes a formation for a future life. But here in Savitri, Sri Aurobindo describes it differently. We remember this beautiful passage in The World Soul, where Aswapati comes to an area in that inner world where the beings who once wore forms on earth are sleeping in their internatal sleep, and they are assimilating, digesting all the significant experiences they had in the past life and forming the map of their future birth. This is the the psychic being that passes from one body to another body. But beyond that psychic being, or we could say at the very core and center of that psychic being, there's the true eternal individuality, which has its own unique svabhava, its own unique characteristics, and its own unique svadharma, its law of existence. So all the formations that the incarnated soul takes in evolution, building up its psychic personality, will be shaped and formed by that essential individuality of the eternal being. We read about this in the Life Divine, and I remember a talk of the Mother's where she was asked, is the psychic being our true individuality? And I was very surprised that she said no. She said, our psychic being is an evolutionary development around this spark of deity. And that spark of deity is our eternal, infinite, transcendent individuality. And that shapes each of these births in the course of evolution. So there's the lovely story about Uda, one of Mother's disciples, who had a vision or a feeling or a dream that he was a pebble on a beach, and close to him were Mother and Sri Aurobindo, and they were both pebbles too. And he told this experience to Mother, and she said, yes, it is true. So he'd been with her from the very beginning.
So much of it isn't literal, and I think sometimes when I hear people have these ideas of when does the soul enter a physical body, when does it happen at conception, at birth, at this year, that year, we're too literal.
We're too literal about it, yes. It can hover around and influence the being before fully taking over. Yes, that's right, Paula. Thank you. You must sense this often during birth. Huh? Yes.
I think one beautiful thing here in lines 152 to 155 is that with this sacred yearning, there's sure to be a response.
Yes, yes.
What we really aspire for, the divine is going to answer with the
yes,
birth.
exactly. Yes. So shall we go on? Patty, you would be next. The single call.
The single call, the uncompanioned power, drew back into some far-off secret world, the hue and marvel of the supernal being. She looked no more on our mortality. The excess of beauty, natural to Godkind, could not uphold its claim on time-worn eyes. Too mystic real for space tenancy, her body of glory was expunged from heaven. The rarity and wonder lived no more. It was the common light of earthly days.
So that's it. Right? It dissolves in bright, accustomed air. That presence and power, that body of glory that has lit up the sky, that rarity and wonder, that miraculous dawn light was no longer there. There was just the common light, the ordinary light of earthly day.
But in one sense, that glory has been diffused, so it is actually everywhere.
I say its seed of grandeur has been planted in the hours. That seed has to sprout. But I think it's so beautiful, this description, the dawn goddess. She's the single call, the message and the messenger, the uncompanioned power. She's all alone. And she's come, she's given her message, and now she's drawing back with herself into some far-off secret world, the hue and marvel, the color and the wonder of that supernal beam, that beam from beyond our world. She's been looking at Earth. No, she bent over Earth's pondering forehead curve, but now she's not looking anymore on our mortal world. She's moved on. No? And then Aurobindo emphasizes that what he mentioned before, that only a little the godlight can stay. This excess of beauty that is natural to God-kind, to divine beings, couldn't uphold its claim on our time-born eyes. We couldn't hold it. It fades away. And her body of glory is too real, too mystic real, to be able to stay in our kind of space. Tenancy. You're a tenant. You stay temporarily in a place. No? But that body of hers, it doesn't fit with our kind of space, our material space. So it can just visit, show a hint of itself for a time, but then it has to fade away. No? So that body of glory which she shone briefly, it's expunged, wiped away from the skies. That rarity and wonder lived no more. There was the common light of earthly day.
Was it called single call?
He spoke about the message and the messenger. So I suppose the call is the message. This message that the dawn is bringing, and the uncompanioned power is the messenger, the dawn goddess. Is it okay? Yeah. Is it all right, Amal? You're satisfied? No, you're not. So what are you not satisfied with?
I'm not able to understand how the word call can be used for message. Call is a call, an invocation.
Come. It can be an invitation as well. Is that easier?
Call of the mother to the souls, isn't it?
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Single call.
Message seeds, the message to call.
And the message is of the future of the earth, no? The fulfillment. It's a promise also. Margaret, you would read?
Once more, the rumor of the speed of light.
I think you've got to start one there.
A franchise from the respite of fatigue. Once more, the rumor of the speed of light pursued the cycles of her blinded quest. All sprang to their unvarying daily acts. The 1,000 peoples of the soil and tree obeyed the unforeseen instant's urge. And leader here, with his uncertain mind, alone who stares at the future's covered face, man lifted up the burden of his fate.
Thank you. Affranchised means set free. So it is as if there's been a time when life, the movement of life, was, we can say, imprisoned or held for a time in this period of respite, the time of rest from exhaustion, which life needs. There's a rhythm of life. No? It always has this dynamic period, and then there's a period of rest. But that period of rest is over. Now life can set off again, the speed of life. And when it moves, there's a sound, a noise, the rumour, the sounds accompanying the movement of life, following the cycles of life's blinded quest. Life is always searching for something without really knowing how to find what it's searching for. A blinded quest. And this gets expressed in the action of all the animals in the forest. All sprang, they all wake up, and they start immediately their unvarying daily acts, the things they do every day. The 1,000 peoples of the soil and tree. They are just obeying the unforeseen instant's urge. What instinct tells them to do next. But man is not like that. Also in this forest, there are some human beings. And as the dawn passes, these human beings who are the leaders of earth life, they have only their uncertain mind. But what human beings do, unique among all the species, is that they wonder what's coming next, staring at the future's covered face. So man is the leading species here on earth. So he's got a burden of responsibility. And when he wakes up in the morning, each of us has to take our share of that burden of the destiny of humanity.
I want to tell you something about the speed of life. In the beginning, I am very speed when I'm driving, when I'm walking, when I'm meditating. And now it's totally opposite. I tell you why I want knowledge through that. And one time I am a great Christian to Shraddhavan and the mother. And mother told me, you're living in the separation. When you are agitated, this, you don't do what you read. When you listen, when you don't apply in yourself. Alors I understand. Now I am totally opposite. I go, it's a simple life. I have not vision of the future, but the life coming very simple and very. And for that, when this building going very fast, but is not fast externally, but is people you work for them inside is incredible. For me, is totally opposite of the fast in the road people.
Perhaps the speed of life, this is the responses to the instant's urge, the thing that has to be done next, no? Obeying the unforeseen instant's urge. But when we develop beyond the purely animal stage, then there's this sense of having a burden, a responsibility to carry, something to lift up in the morning.
The idea is that the fatigue is the respite, that it's not the only thing that stops the speed of life is that you get tired.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to make an observation that sometimes on the Pondy beach in the morning, around the time of the sun has just come up, how few people are looking towards the sun. Most of the people are either sitting with their back or they're jogging with on their cell phones. So it's quite a description of how a different man is to this thing that's happening every day.
But does it mean the speed is not good?
No, he doesn't say that. He doesn't say that it's not good. He's just saying that it makes a noise. There's a sound that accompanies it. And at the beginning of the day, we can hear that sound picking up No? In the night hours, the dark hours, it is quieter.
Here, rumor is not gossip.
Here, rumor is not gossip, it is sound, yes. It's the sound, yes. So that is it. That's this first amazing section of the amazing poem. He's described the symbol dawn. And next he's going to describe, just a moment, he's going to describe Savitri also waking up. What did you want to share?
People of soil and cleaning.
What do you think it means? They're living in a forest, and all these animals and birds and all these living beings are there. All these peoples. A people can mean a nation, perhaps. So there's a nation of squirrels and rabbits and particular kinds of birds. All of them, they all wake up and they all start doing their usual thing that they do every day. Is it clear? You mean, why does he use the word people?
People is a soil.
There are worms and insects living in the soil also. Yeah. All this life, all of...
Why he says people is any living being?
Except the man.
He says peoples. So it means all these different species, all these different kinds of living beings. And later on he calls them tribes in the first line of the next section.
Also, human beings live on soil.
But we are not people of soil. We're more people of air.
No, but we are people. And that's why he uses man later.
Yes.
It can be an exception, it doesn't have to.
Shall we go on? Shall we go on? Who's next? Narendra? Yes. It means that man, humanity, is the leading species on the earth at the moment. And we have this uncertain mind, and we are the ones who try to, well, we do, especially when we wake up, we're looking into the future. What's coming today? What have I got to do? What's likely to crop up? No? We stare at the future's uncertain face. It's not. We have an idea what might come up, but we are not sure about it. And we have this sense of effort, that there's an effort to be made. I don't think animals have that. They just do what they have to do. No?
They do everything instinctively, but
Yeah. Yeah. Shall we go on, Narendra?
And Savitri too awoke among these tribes that hastened to join the brilliant summoner's chant, and, lured by the beauty of the apparent ways, acclaimed their ocean of eternal joy. Akin to the eternity whence she came, no part she took in this small happiness. A mighty stranger in the human field, the embodied guest within made no response. The call that wakes the leap of human mind is checkered, eager motion of pursuit, its fluttering hued illusion of desire, visited her heart like a sweet alien note. Time's message of brief life was not for her.
Thank you. Anything to ask or share about this passage?
The first sentence, Savitri too awoke. Here awoke means, refers to the fact that she awoke at the dawn of a new day, or
Yes.
she awoke to become more conscious of her...
No, here it means she woke up. She too had been sleeping. She woke up among all these other people who are waking up.
Literally, or is it like more spiritual?
In this case, I think it's quite literal. At the end of the canto, in a couple of pages' time, Sri Aurobindo describes exactly all the stages of her waking up and coming back to her memory and her spirit re-entering her body. We'll read that later. So I think it means just like everybody else woke up, Savitri too, he says too, she also woke up among these tribes. But for her the waking up is different. Yeah? They are hurrying to join in this brilliant summoner's chant.
Yeah, who's that summoner?
Yes, I would welcome some illumination. A summoner is somebody who calls you. Wake up. It's day. No? I'm here. Patricia.
I was looking at Olivier's exhibit, photographs and the quotations from and somehow I didn't copy the one that rings for me, and I believe it must be Agni. Yeah. So I don't know.
Is there anybody here with a sufficient knowledge of Indian tradition to say something about this appellation?
I had also noticed the aspect of Agni.
You had mentioned Agni.
I wrote one thing about Usha.
Well, Usha was the messenger. Usha's come and gone. But now the sun is rising. There are so many different names for the sun. But probably the summoner is one of them. But the sun doesn't chant. No? I mean, at least we don't hear his chant. Maybe he does. Maybe he's singing Om, Om.
Scientists say the sound of the sun is Om. They have recorded it in Auroville.
Yes. So it may be something like this. But anyway, what this brilliant summoner's chant, what it means for me is the dawn chorus. No? Everybody's singing, and they are all being allured, they're being attracted by the beauty of the apparent ways, what they can see in front of their noses, and they are acclaiming. They are saying yes with a noise, with a shout, to their share of the ephemeral joy of existence, of life. There's some confusion about this word acclaimed. Yes, sorry, Sadeb.
This is an interesting phrase here called speed of life. This is when this was written, there was a lot of talk about the speed of light.
Yes.
And interestingly, in 1 year, from one birth to next birth, in 1 year of our life, we go around the sun and cover 900 million kilometers.
9 million kilometers.
900 million.
900 million kilometers.
We, on Earth,
that's how fast we're traveling.
Go around the sun and cover 900 million kilometers.
Wow.
It's extraordinary.
That's extraordinary.
And in this time, we receive the light, the illumination, the warmth, and the life. Because life would not exist on Earth if the sun were not.
That's
so
right.
I feel this is a great tribute to the speed of life.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you.
Recently I got a message, and there is a voice also recording there, that the NASA has discovered that the voice of the sound that comes from the sun is like Om.
That's just what Patty was saying. Yeah. I remember hearing many years ago a recording of I think a German musicologist. He had collected recordings because each planet has its vibratory rhythm and they all sound different. So the ancients knew about the music of the spheres, no? That's what they called it. And yes, I'm sure the sound of the sun, it must be a very, very deep, resonant Om. And that vibration is, of course, giving life to everything in the solar system, isn't it?
Because Om is the summoner, no? Om calls us into the beyond. That's where the M takes us to the end.
Yes. He says the brilliant summoner. So I think we have to interpret this as the sun. But I remember I used to think of it as the cock crow. The cock is the one who summons the sun, actually. Or at least he believes he does. No. Well, even if there aren't domestic hens, there are pheasants and other animals that crow in the early morning. They are the ones who set off the dawn chorus. Or the peacocks, yeah.
It's the only one that after 12 already starts. The one that keeps the day from the very beginning.
Yeah, I think especially in Auroville, the morning chanting of the birds is amazing.
Yeah.
In Hindi, here is written Samgan. Sam Vedka Gan, I don't know, but it is who have translated, it is here summoner's chant, but here is written Sam Gan.
So what does it mean? The one who...
I don't know, Sam Vedka Gan, or I cannot hear, maybe something different. Those who are, maybe know the Sanskrit or Hindi better, they can say Sam Gan.
Vladimir.
Yes, Sam is a new word to me as a Hindi speaking person also. Yes, maybe sun also. Yes.
Anyway, Vladimir, our Sanskritist, told me that it's the name of the sun, Samana.
But what's the Sanskrit word?
This I don't remember. But Pushan, that's a name for the sun, no? Ravi, there are Dinka, there are so many names. Perhaps you can find.
So this summoner is an English word?
Yes.
It's English word.
Yes, but here he's put a capital S. To summon means to call somebody. It means he's telling you you have to do something or to come.
And it's an order also, you can't refuse a summoner.
That's right, if the summoner calls you, you can't refuse. But this is a chant, it's a song, and all the birds and animals are joining in that song because they're acclaiming. This is their consent, they are giving their consent to this, their share, their little bit of short-lived joy, the joy of a moment, of a day.
So Savitri doesn't take part in that human call, but the summoner.
She doesn't take part in this small happiness.
But that also is a part of the play, because those people are being wakened up by that summoner, right?
Yes.
She's calling everybody, but she's on another plane.
She's akin to the eternity when she's come.
Yeah.
And so this brief happiness, this small happiness, this doesn't call to her and she doesn't acclaim it. Within her there's this mighty stranger, this embodied guest, the divine being within. It doesn't respond to all this she wakes up, but she doesn't respond to this summons. The soul doesn't respond, and the mind doesn't respond. The call that wakes the leap of human mind. The human mind sets off immediately on its checkered, eager motion of pursuit, running after something. And there's this fluttering hued, like a butterfly, fluttering hued illusion of desire. That's the kind of thing that gets us up in the morning, But these things visit her heart, a sweet note. She loves the earth and all these creatures, but it's alien. This call, this response, this is not for her. Time's message of brief light was not for her. She is akin to the eternity from which she came. The summoner could be the time spirit. Did you find anything?
No internet here.
Oh, no.
There is another word for sun is called Devata.
Yes.
So it's more like who brings the day.
Yes.
So without that fellow who brings the day, the little tribes...
They wouldn't wake up, no? It's his call that wakes them up, yeah. Thank you.
So, I remember in my survival to travel with a teacher, and in the marvellous Savitri, she was the name of the son. Savitri. Like Savitri.
Yes, Savitri, yes, yes. This is the sun below the horizon, before it comes, before we can see it, the new light coming. So there's so many different names for the sun. Shall we read on? Who's next? Tuan.
There was the anguish of the gods, impatient in our transient human mold. The dead is conquered by the dead of things. A vast and nature's joy had once been hers, but long could keep not its gold heavenly hue, or stand upon his brittle earthly days, a narrow movement on tide's deep abyss. Life's fragile littleness denied the power. The proud and consciousness and conscious likeness and the bliss she had brought with her into the human. The proud and conscious likeness and the bliss she had brought with her into the human form. The calm delight that weds one's soul to all. The key to the flaming doors of ecstasy. Earth's grain that needs the set of pleasure and tears, rejected the undying rapturous boon, offered to the daughter of infinity, her passion flower of love and bloom she gave.
Thank you. Savitri is suffering. She doesn't take part in this small happiness of all the little creatures waking up in the morning. In her, there was the anguish of the gods, imprisoned in our transient human mold.
In line 191, no partial took in this small happiness, but then down there in 202, a vaster nature's joy once in hers. So she was beyond it, but at the same time she was caught in it.
No, if you read it carefully, Patty, what it says is that now she's suffering. Now she's suffering the anguish of the gods who are imprisoned in the human mold, who are subject to ignorance and death, who are living as human beings. And then it says that at one time, at some earlier time, a vaster nature's joy had once been hers, but it couldn't keep its lovely golden color, and it couldn't stand, it couldn't remain on this material base, this brittle earthly base. The life that we experience here on earth is fragile and very limited, and it contradicts, denies all those divine qualities that she's brought with her when she came. But those things couldn't remain.
For her work, she had to fully participate in the earth nature.
Exactly. So now she has to suffer. That's what it says. No, she brought with her this calm delight. That's the key to the flaming doors of ecstasy. But earth's grain here, the way that earth grows, the earth form grows, it needs this duality, the sap of pleasure and tears, and that rejects this gift of calm delight that she's brought with her. It's rejected this boon of the undying rapture. Earth doesn't want to have anything to do with that. Instead, it offers to Savitri, the daughter of infinity, her passion flower of love and doom, the two things, the joy of union and the ordeal of the foreknowledge of death, and the heart's grief and pain. She has to experience all those things.
That's the only way of progress then. Because if everything was perfect already, there'd be no progress.
I find these lines so, I don't know, so moving.
Yeah.
You know, that this is her sacrifice. This is what she's accepted, to come on earth and to live as a human being and to lose that proud and conscious wideness and the bliss that is actually her native consciousness, her nature. And this moment now, the dawn of the day on which Satyavan must die, this is perhaps the moment of the most intense suffering that she has to pass through. That's what's described in the rest of this canto. Well, you wanted to say something, Don? Sorry? Oh.
As it goes, he doesn't have to put his hand for me. Okay, and this part there, when it says, in her there was the anguish of the gods imprisoned in our transient human mode, the deathless conquered by the death of things.
That's what she feels at the moment. She's an immortal being, but she's facing the death of Satyavan. And she's conquered by this nature of earth, the nature of death. She feels defeated by that. It's very, very painful. Yes, time compared with a lifetime compared with the vastness of universal time is so narrow, it's so limited.
Isn't this really a paradox of existence for her? Juncture of immortality and mortality?
Yes, yes. It's the contradiction that Earth, this limited material universe, offers to her vastness, her divinity. It denies it. It says no. And we will see her having to face that denial very, very poignantly in the later books of the poem.
I remember also as a child already, I always felt hurt when so many people rejected something, the rapture, which is there in life. And they're very much, no, it's not like this, it's all suffering and it's normal. So this.
But here it's the suffering itself, which is showing itself in a way that can't be denied. Yes.
One comes up as a martyrism on the cross, but not on the cross, but having to get down and dirty, with the realities of embodiment.
Yes, exactly.
And with she carries this in herself the possibility
of another life.
So
and then if we read on, it says that's what she wanted to bring precisely to earth, was that possibility, that other life. But now what she's experiencing is the refusal of earth nature. I think we should read that bit. You can read it. All right. Yes, it's your turn to read. Line 215.
In vain now, seeing the splendid sacrifice, a particle of her rich divinity, herself and all she was, she had lent to men, hoping her greater being to implant, and in their bodies' lives acclimatize, that heaven might native grow on mortal soil. Hard is it to persuade earth's nature's change. Mortality bears ill
the Eternal's touch. It fears the pure divine intolerance of that assault of ether and of fire. It murmurs as it sorrows happiness, almost with hate, and repels the light it brings. It trembles as its naked power of truth and the might and sweetness of its absolute voice, inflicting on the heights the abysm's law. It sullies with its mire heaven's messengers. Its thorns of fallen nature are the defense. It turns against the Savior hands of grace. It meets the sons of God with death and pain.
Thank you. So that's just what you were saying. Anything to ask or to share about this passage?
I was thinking this is the uniqueness of Mother Aurobindo, that some people want to get out of the world to a heaven. My mother told me, I want to go to heaven, she said. I told her, Mother, progress is possible only on the earth. I don't know if she understood that. But other people feel that the world is in misery, always miserable, and you can't do anything about it. But Mother Aurobindo alone want to change it. That's the uniqueness that's spoken of here, no? The thing that says always seemed impossible is now becoming possible.
But here she's seeing the impossibility. That's the anguish. She's a prodigal. She's thrown away all her rich divinity, herself and all she was. She's lent to humanity with the idea that her greater being, her greater consciousness and type of existence could be implanted here in humanity and acclimatized in the lives of the human body, so that heaven might native grow on mortal soil, as if it really belongs here. That would be the divine life on earth. No? When we first came to Auroville, people experimented. Only a few kinds of flowers would grow, I remember. Endurance. Nowadays we hardly see it, but that was the zinnia, common zinnia. That plant used to grow. But people experimented. Passionate gardeners planted trees and different kinds of plants, trying to get them to grow here. And it took time, and a kind of acclimatization process happens. And then when they'd got acclimatized, then they grew easily. So there's this implanting and acclimatization process. That's what she wanted to do with her divine nature, to make it grow naturally as a native here on mortal soil. But that's a very difficult thing to do. Aurobindo says, hard is it to persuade earth nature's change. There's something in the earth nature which is really in the grip of death, mortality. It's something actually we can't imagine earth life without. We cannot imagine that forms don't have to die, and that mortality is ingrained in our bodies and our consciousness. So when something eternal touches us, that's terrifying. Our mortality fears the pure divine intolerance of that assault. It feels it's a touch of blessing, but it's felt like a powerful attack, an assault of ether, of subtlety, the most pure, refined substance, and of fire, of intense energy. So everything mortal in us complains, it murmurs at that sorrow, the idea even of sorrowless happiness. How is that possible? How boring it would be even if there were only happiness Something in us feels like that there has to be contrast and suffering. And the response, the automatic response of some parts of our nature, it is to repel, almost with hate, that light. And fear, it trembles at that naked power of truth and the strength and the sweetness of its absolute voice. All that is very threatening and disturbing and upsetting. So the response of the earth nature is to inflict on those higher consciousnesses or beings that come to insist that they have to follow the law of the lower levels, the laws of matter, the laws of the lower vital levels. So it sullies with its mire heaven's messengers. Those great beings come, but earth nature throws on them all its mud. Mire is dirty mud. And its thorns of fallen nature are the defense it turns against the saviour hands of grace. The saviour hands of grace would like to raise up and rescue, but it just sticks out its thorns. So that's what the earth nature does. It meets the sons of God with death and pain. And that is what Savitri is facing at this moment.
But that's why Satyavan has to die. I remember when I first read that line, I rebelled against that. Why did Satyavan have to die? But now, because earth will tolerate only that it takes part in the suffering and then is reborn. So this whole book is a story of that promise of the future, and then a night that turns into a greater dawn. So we can progress always, isn't it? That will be the secret of physical immortality on earth. I think it's constant progress. Even at the level of matter. We're not there yet. Isn't it? Because earth says, no, we're not going to have a static thing here. That's not what earth is for.
What Shraddhavan said before, and it goes only together what he said, this boring, people feel boring to me, and like excitement. Excitement. And I felt, why people feel boring? When you're in nature connection, you never feel bored. Never. I never feel bored. Because
if you have the inner connection with the immortal, then you're not bored.
I think Sri Aurobindo expresses all this so subtly and so powerfully. That's what we should be trying to absorb. What is he expressing in this particular lines? He's not telling us you ought to be this or you ought to be that. He's describing psychological states. And this is the psychological state of anguish that Savitri is passing through now. And he helps us to experience something of that ourselves. We can identify in all of us there's a divine being who's imprisoned in our transient human mold. And Huta has made some amazing paintings of the soul in this state, which is being described here. No? And Mother has given the title, Let Me Be Out of It Soon. The suffering soul, that's a reality of earth existence. And it's no use explaining it away with moralistic words or nice words or this or that. That's a real experience. And throughout the poem, Sri Aurobindo is bringing us close to very, very deep and intense experiences, helping our souls to grow, to be able to respond to that higher light. That's how I see it.
The line 220, that heaven might native grow.
Yes, that's the aim.
Not that it will land here and be in heaven the way it was up there.
Mother said that earth has accepted
Yes, nature has accepted to collaborate, yes. And if we look carefully, what we read last week also, she says, if we're alert and awake, we'll see the beginnings of change. No? We have that chance. To sully means to dirty, to make dirty.
And I remember Mother said everyone has got a twist in their nature. She herself said that I had a twist, or she has, isn't it? I was wondering what that twist would be of Mother's.
So that is the work of each of us, no? To find that twist and untwist it. Or to, maybe we can't twist it ourselves, but we can offer it to the light to be untwisted. That's the work. I'm very sure that she became free from that. But she also had to do the work, yes. And she had nobody to guide her. We've got all this guidance from Sri Aurobindo and the Mother. She had to do it all herself. So shall we stop there? The divine, no? Sorry, I've lost the place. The eternal's touch. That brings light, but the earth nature pushes that light away, feels it as an attack.
Only the psychic being doesn't feel attacked by the divine, but the mortal and the immortal need to.
So you have something for us? Not too many, it's already 5 to 12.
And Savitri too awoke among these times that hastened to join the brilliant summoner's throng, a narrow movement on time's dim abyss. Life denied the power. The proud and comfort, the white neck, and the bliss she had borne with her enters into human form. The calm delight that waits one soul that needs the sap of pleasure and care, rejecting the undying rapture of good, offered to the daughter of the King. Her passion flower of love and bloom.
Thanks to Aurobindo.